You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 24, part 2. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. This podcast is dedicated to Circus. It's a place for professionals to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into our world. Speaking of professionals with information, I have a little message from Shayna Swanson, the founder and director of Aloft in Chicago, about an upcoming project. Take it away, Shayna.
Hi, my name is Shayna, and I direct a circus company called Aloft, and Shannon has graciously given me a chance to pop in here for a second and talk about my new show, Brave Space, which is premiering in Chicago October 6th and 7th. Brave Space is an intimate, immersive pop-up circus show that happens inside of a blanket fort that the audience and the performers build together. In fact, it's a show that deeply and genuinely depends on the audience for the execution of several of the acts in an attempt to cultivate a sense of danger and responsibility for the well-being of the artist and fellow audience. It's about putting yourself on the line for the safety and the well-being of your community, even if you could just sit back and let someone else do all the hard work. People have said that the show is like being transported into another world or back into the womb. I'm so excited to present this show in Chicago, and I hope that if you're there, or if you have a bunch of frequent flyer miles burning a hole in your pocket, that you will come and see it. Thanks, Shannon.
Again, that's Brave Space, October 6th and 7th in Chicago. If you're in the area and you want to get tickets, go to aloftcircusarts.com/original-shows. If you haven't listened to the podcast before, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. This episode contains the second part of an interview I did with Steve Smith, and it might not make a whole lot of sense unless you listen to part 1 first. So, go back, do that, and then listen to this one. Don't worry, I'll wait. Here's part 2 of my interview with Steve Smith. So I do, because you started to mention about your time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I would love, to hear about. But because you haven't only, been quite accomplished in the circus realm, but you've won Emmys, you've done all this work.
I have been. I am a lucky pup. Believe me, I don't take any of this for granted. I also never had a game plan, ever. Because usually whatever I expect to have happen, doesn't. So to reduce my disappointment in the world and life around me, I try to have no expectations.
You just have no expectations.
High standards, low expectations. Try to keep it on that plane. Usually it works out pretty good. But the Hollywood thing, who would have guessed? So, one of my stints doing advance for Ringling, I was on a radio program in Chicago. And in the other booth was Chuck Jones, legendary Warner Brothers animator, creator of Pepe Le Pew, Marvin Martian, directed over 300 Warner Brothers cartoons, redefined Daffy Duck and Bugs. Boyhood hero. So I, in full makeup, because I always did, I didn't care what.
You did radio in full makeup?
Absolutely. Always. Otherwise, I felt I was lying, because I was going on as my clown character. Anyway, so I knocked, their light went off and I knocked on the window and he waved back and I went, and he went, so I wandered into.
Oh, he just, oh no.
Chuck Jones. Oh,
right.
I'm doing mime on radio. Marcel Marsupis here on the radio. Oh, it was so brilliant. I'm so glad. Did you see that, ladies and gentlemen? Moron who comes into it. Yeah, so
Chuck Jones gestured to you.
Gestured for me to come in.
Yes.
So I, not being shy, I wandered in. Said, Mr. Jones, I'm Mr. Smith, and I love you. And he said, I love you more. And that's how we started a 15-year friendship. And at the time, I was then the director of the Clown College for Ringling Brothers, and I invited Chuck to come as a guest artist, which he took me up on, and he came many years.
A cartoonist.
Gratis. And he would bring, on film, not video, because he hated the way it got translated, because color, 35 millimeter prints of Roadrunner cartoons, because I said we use this as a teaching tool, nonverbal communication, which is what we have to do in Ringling because it's so large. he immediately got it. And then we dissected the cartoons into beats and to intention and story and why does he do this. And we just became very close friends. When I left Ringling for the 4th time, I called him and said, Chuck, I'm leaving Ringling Brothers. He said, great, I'm starting up again at Warner Brothers, so come on out here. I said, Chuck, I don't draw. He said, I know, I've seen your work. Joke. But he was serious, and so
You went out to Hollywood.
I went to Hollywood, and I spent 2 years working with Chuck, and it was probably doomed from the get-go, but there was no way to sustain Chuck's dream because it was all hand-drawn animation. 24 frames, 24 drawings per second.
Wow.
For a 6-minute cartoon. It's a flurry of drawings that have to then be colorized.
Yeah, I didn't go to school for math, but I feel like that would take a really long time.
Well, and then to get it colorized. And
right.
Oh my God. So, but my job, which was just phony baloney title, I said, Chuck, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, I want you to be like the studio, I don't know, mascot. Do you want me to, what? So I was the court jester, basically. But my job was to recruit these 12 young animators and then put them through class time. In other words, because everything was hand-drawn and they were very much into CGI, it was a shift for them. But also storyboarding became huge. But then Chuck insisted that they get up and act out their storyboards. He said, you don't know how Daffy might pick up a 500-pound weight if you don't try it. He said, you don't know about any living thing until you understand its skeleton and muscular structure. Then you can learn how it can be funny. Then you know how the Roadrunner's neck can extend out and his eyeballs can be this way. And so my job was to take people who had no acting desire or ability to get up and act out totally embarrassed by doing it.
Oh, I'm sure.
They love being behind their rotoscopes and creating that way. But also I set up all the life drawing classes. But Chuck didn't want just models to come in. So we would have, because of my circus background, we'd have contortionists come in, we'd have sideshow people come in. This was the joy about being on the Warner lot. They had a Western town. I knew some of the stunt people. They put on a whole fight sequence for us. And anytime I would take the animators out, they had to bring their sketch pads. Because then they would go back and then they would have to tell a story to Chuck about what they saw that day.
Wow, nice.
Yes, we'd go to the zoo, we went to Magic Castle, we'd do all kind of fun things. But 2 years in Hollywood playing with my boyhood hero, coming into the Warner Brothers lot every day, waving, the little gate goes up. Oh my God, I still
what a
get
dream.
Oh my Lord. It was a blast. I treasure the moments that I got to spend with Chuck and his family. He was the real deal. He didn't enjoy celebrity status until very late in his life. So he was always genuine. He was always open and lovely and kind. Kind would be the biggest takeaway as far as who he was as a man.
And you returned to Circus after working with him.
Yes, because the studio closed. Yeah, they signed him to a lifetime contract when he was 85. I thought that was very good going, kid. Yeah. And then they shut the studio down, as only Hollywood could. So then I went back to Sarasota, where I had a home. Mm-hmm. Rarely worked there, but
do you still have a home in Sarasota?
No.
Okay.
I finally sold that. I never worked there. Why do I have this house? But Dolly Jacobs and Pedro Reyes were starting. We thought we were starting a school. So we put our money together and we started the National Circus School for Performing Arts in Sarasota, Florida. And we couldn't get funding. We didn't know. We hadn't done the homework, really. But we had this treasure trove of circus artists, retired, to draw on. And so what has happened now, 21 years later, is that Dolly and Pedro, I withdrew because the dream is wonderful, but I like to pay my mortgage.
So food is really nice.
It is. It's a good thing. And every now and again, getting some ice cream. Good thing. But now they have taken over, in the good sense of that word, the Sailor Circus program, which is probably one of the oldest youth training programs in the country, 60-some years old, on their lot, and are doing a capital campaign. We've raised the money. They're redoing this whole place.
Great.
So that it's the Sailor Circus Academy. It's Circus Sarasota, and their outreach programs as well. And now it's called the Circus Arts Conservatory, and that's the umbrella for the organization.
Great.
Anyway, I started with them. Wasn't going to make any money. Spent way too much money trying to help get it going. I knew I had to So I locked into a job with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, and for 9 years was director of the cruise comic program, where we took physical comedians in teams of 4 and rehearsed shows in Miami, fly to Finland, where they then built those ships, and then on the crossing, we would tech the shows. No guests, just as chicken. They're still laying the carpet and gluing things down, and the fumes were incredible. And why it was in November, I don't know, but crossing the North Sea in November is not good for people on rolling globes and stilts. I'm just saying.
I'll keep that in mind. Wait, so Royal Caribbean, you put together the show in Miami.
Yes.
Would have to fly to Finland.
Fly to Finland and get on the ship that wasn't...
The half-built ship.
Wasn't heated yet. Now this is November, October, November. So you go into rehearsals with hard hats and down jackets.
You're like, I left Sarasota for this.
I love the theater. I should like to die upon the stage. And we did often. Geez. Again, somebody paid for us to have this playground and this sandbox and so we had a recruitment and I brought in 40 of the best physical comedians that I knew in this country and beyond, and we made these teams and sets that you did throughout the week. For instance, waiting in line to get on a cruise ship is just interminable. And how can we make that more enjoyable? So I didn't create these pieces, but some of the comics, if they were flexible enough, one of them would get inside a big suitcase. They would just dress like people and get in line. And whoever was on the outside of the suitcase would start complaining about, when am I going to get on this ship? I've been standing in line. And the bag would start to tremble and roll, and somebody would come out. And anyway, you would spot things like that throughout the experience on a 7-day cruise.
Yeah, great.
And
fun.
Just let fun people do what they do.
Yeah.
And change the sets up so that nothing was ever written in stone. And you had to do some things that were the same, but it was crazy. But at the same time I was doing that, I also was directing for the Big Apple Circus. So I'd come and get off the ship and fly to New York, because you never say no.
Right.
I got a job.
Right.
Gotta go. Okay, great.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's Circus physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show. And so finally you land here in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I came here not to work. I came here for healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
I could not get in Florida. As a man of a certain age, my older brother said, I think you would qualify, sir, for some programs out here. Stunning how the difference between what happens in San Francisco for healthcare in Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah.
Anyway, the idiot governor of Florida, pardon me, Rick Scott.
Where's the...
I'll give him that's it. You can put that right on top of this one. Thank you very much.
Not a political podcast at all.
I had a position of desperation. I needed some medical care. So I came here and found that care. But I'd never really been sick, ever. I mean, for an extended period of time, and this was an extended period of time. And boy, what that did to me mentally. I lost all faith in myself, and all my confidence went out the window because I wasn't me anymore. What is this shell of a person? What the hell happened? But as I was recuperating and getting better, it was getting antsy, so I went through Craigslist looking for jobs, and I saw this front desk help needed, no company name but the address, 755 Frederick Street. I said, I know that address, because I had done some workshops here for Jeff Raz at the then Clinton Conservatory.
That's hysterical that they put it on Craigslist and they didn't happen to mention at all that it was a circus center.
No, just. So I sent in for that job. And Tracy, who's still here, came up to Barry's office, executive director, and said, I don't think he's right for the front desk, but you may want to talk to this guy. So they called me in and we started chatting, and I said, I don't know that I'm capable. And I just don't know that I have the same energy that I used to have. But I'd like to give it a shot if you're willing to take a chance. So when you asked me a long time ago about being a full-time,
yes,
I am, but I sort of get to dictate. When the battery starts running low, I check out, go take a nap, or do whatever I need to do to come back full force. And it just so happened that they were doing this work in the former band room of Polytech High School in this beautiful old barn of a building, and I pitched the idea for the cabaret, and again was said yes, and it's worked out pretty well. So
nice.
I hope for everyone who's done it and everyone who sees it as well.
Yes, I've heard very good things.
It's my selfish giving, It's like,
and what do you see for the future of circus in the U.S., or maybe just Circus Center?
I think the future of circus in general, this is the time.
Yeah.
Was I sad when Ringling folded its tents? Yes, absolutely. But 146 years is a long run for anybody, and it was time. Do I miss that life? Do I miss knowing that it's out there? I think I'm more nostalgic for that. I miss knowing that train, that mile-long train, is chugging its way from coast to coast, and that people in small towns who would, as we were going through the crossing, we used to sit on the vestibule between the cars. Even at 1 o'clock in the morning, you hear the clang of the bells and the crossbars going down, and the cars would stop. People would drive there to see it and wave. I mean,
wow.
I miss knowing that that's there, knowing that there was a place where physical comedians could go and twice a day perform to a live audience. No better teacher than that. And after 500 a year, you either get really good or you get really sore or bad, but you don't stay in the same place.
Right.
I miss knowing that. However, Groucho Marx said, change is inevitable except from a vending machine. So, and that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. So, change is now. What does it mean? I don't have a freaking clue, but I know that if I were starting out again, this is the time to mold and to create. Cirque du Soleil did it and transformed an industry. It's time again for that to happen. Does it need to happen on that scale? No, probably won't. Grassroots, community service, home-based. When I look at the Midnight Circus in Chicago, when I look at Circus Bella here, what they do in the parks, those kinds of interactions with communities, and you come back year after year, and those are the families that become your families. That's how the traditions are born. Now is the time to impose your artistic vision on something. We need not escapism. We need to be reminded of our humanity. And that's what I think circus artists do better than anybody else.
Yeah.
I see you up in the air, or I see a ground routine. There's not a chance in the world that I could do that. But I know that the potential lies in all of us to do something great. And that's what we need now, to be reminded of that. See?
Yeah, I know, me too.
What happened when you stay up all night?
Well, I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you...
Oh, bless your heart.
Take a moment.
This old gas bag here.
No, it's really beautiful and really refreshing. But the last question I just have to ask, because I ask everyone on the show, it's my thing that I do, is what advice would you give to yourself? I'm going to make you cry even more.
I know.
What advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of all of this, when you held that magazine?
Trust your instinct. Trust your instinct. I know that not everybody has the same moral compass or the same philosophy of life. But my gut has directed me in the right way and the wrong ways. I've always known when I've strayed from the path and I've done something that I shouldn't have done. I'm not talking about right and wrong. I'm just talking about choices.
Yeah.
And as the choices come, I trust my instinct. I listen to my gut. I know that the first words out of my mouth should never be listened to, but the first thought that comes into my head, or the first feeling I get in my gut, I hold on to that. I don't dismiss it. I will put it in, the required criteria for examining the problem or the story or the job. But that would be saying trusted, because I've gone through so many years of anxiety, not only not trusting that instinct, but dismissing it. If I thought of it, it's not going to be any good. Self-doubt is important. Self-annihilation is inevitable if that's where you live all the time. So confidence in abilities, not cockiness, confidence in my abilities. Yeah, the way to hold on to that is that none of that negative self-talk, but trusting my instincts. And it started with comedy, but it has grown, I think, to include human values and decency. And I just want to do my best to always do my best. And it sounds trite and ridiculous, but when you try to live that stuff, day in, day out.
It's not so bad.
Not so bad.
Not so bad.
It sort of attracts the same into your own life. So, I think I'll do it.
Why not?
That's what I would do. Yeah. So, if I were a young man with a full head of hair, that's what I would have said to myself. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you so much for
And
this
this was a
interview,
joy.
Steve.
Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is always all mine. Mwah. That was the second part of my interview with Steve Smith. And what an incredible interview and an incredible man. I'm so thankful that he took the time to come on the podcast. He said so much, and man, where to start? I think what I want to point out is Steve Smith won 5 Emmys. He performed and directed and consulted for some of the largest and most well-known corporations and entertainment companies in the world. And yet, at the end of the day, he had to move all the way across the country to get to a state that could provide him with medical treatment when he needed it. Now, as I said in the interview, this is not a political podcast, but in the US, our midterm elections happen in about a month from now, on November 6th. And the outcomes of such elections directly affect the artistic growth of this nation by determining if artists can access programs like Medicaid or food stamps. These government-funded programs do not only serve as support for those who are unemployed or otherwise unable to enter the workforce, though those are fragile populations that need protection as well, but government programs support artists who don't know when the next job could come or are committed to make something that can't quite pay the bills yet. A podcast about Circus, for example. So, I know we're all busy and have crazy lives, but take a moment to make sure if you live in the US, you're registered. And on November 6th, I urge you to vote for candidates who pledge to fund social programs. And to those who say we are irresponsible or frivolous, or that this is in some way our own fault, that we can't afford monthly premiums reaching into the thousands of dollars on our own, well, to you all, I would say, skip the voting machines on November 6th and instead go to the circus. As Steve said at the very end of the interview, the potential lies in all of us to do something great. And this is what Circus reminds us. And this greatness does not lie in the amount of money we make, the amount of followers we have on social media, the size of our houses or our cars. Our greatness lies in our ability to see the magic and wonder in other people and in ourselves. And that's what circus artists show us. If you want to find out more about the Circus Conservatory in Sarasota, you can go to circusarts.org. On the West Coast, check out San Francisco Circus Center at circuscenter.org. As always, I'm on social media. Get at me. You can follow me on Instagram for aerial training tips at _artist_athlete, on Facebook, The Artist Athlete, or online at theartistathlete.com. And if you want to directly support the podcast, visit patreon.com/theartistathlete to make a pledge today. Talk at you next week, friends, fans, and enemies. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space and we'd love to see you.